Welcome everybody to Arrogant Ignorance. I hope you've been listening to me.
What up, family, and welcome to Arrogant Ignorance with your homegirl, Mimi J, and welcome to episode 1. Today is an episode where we are going to do a deep dive audit into the Civil Rights Act and what we gained and what we lost. And before we jump into that, let me tell you a little bit about what this podcast is about. It's for us, by us. I want to have provoking conversations that help us elevate and unify as a community. I believe that we are lacking in that area in so many ways, and how powerful will we be if we can actually come together and unite and push the boat forward for our community and our culture and the things that we are lacking and needing. Now, I want to talk about the Civil Rights Act that was signed in 1964. Let's look at the Civil Rights Act of 1964. When President Lyndon B. Johnson put his pen to the paper, it was a massive credit to our account. For African Americans, that signature meant a legal end to Jim Crow, outlawing discrimination in public spaces and integrating our schools. It was the legislative floor we needed to stand on. But as an accountant, I know that we have to look at the operating cost of progress. Before that bill was even a thought, we were paying in blood. Black bodies met with fire hoses and police dogs in the street of Birmingham and all across America. That brutal cost led us to 1963, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, organized by A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin. This wasn't a dream. It was an economic demand. It was the down payment that forced the 1964 Act into reality. But while that ink was drying on the bill, others were looking at the fine print. And let's dive right in. A lot going on at the time in 1963, and so that's why I kind of wanted to do a deep dive. And what sparked my interest into this subject is actually a speech that Malcolm X gave in 1963, in November of 1963, where this is after the march, and he basically gave his audit and his critiques. So we're kind of like gonna dive into what Malcolm X had to say, and we're also going to break it down for how it relates to us in 2026. So without further ado, let's hear what Brother Malcolm had to say in 1963 after the March on Washington.
And as these Negroes of national stature begin to attack each other, they begin to lose their control of the Negro masses. And Negroes was out there in the streets. They was talking about, we're going to march on Washington. By the way, and right at that time, Birmingham had exploded, and the Negroes in Birmingham, remember, they also exploded. They began to stab the crackers in the back and bust them upside the head. Yes, they did. That's when Kennedy sent in the troops down in Birmingham. Kennedy got on the television and said, this is a moral issue. That's when he said he's going to put out a civil rights bill. And when he mentioned civil rights bill and the Southern crackers started talking about they were going to boycott it or filibuster it, then the Negroes started talking about what? We're going to march on Washington, march on the Senate, march on the White House, march on the Congress, and tie it up, bring it to a halt. Don't let the government proceed. They even said they was going to go out to the airport and lay down on the runaway and don't let no
They wasn't playing. They wasn't playing with y'all.
That was revolution. That was revolution. That was the black revolution. It was the grassroots out there in the street. Scared the white man to death. Scared the white power structure in Washington, D.C. to death.
Now, before we go forward, because I have a little bit more of that clip that I want to listen to, but I want to stop right there because what Malcolm X was saying was that the leaders, the top leaders that were organizing for the African American community at that time were actually in conflict. They couldn't get together. They couldn't get on the same page, which is actually a prevalent problem that we have now. We got too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? So we cannot get on the same page. We cannot unite. And this is another reason why I want to have this podcast and these conversations, because why can't we unite as a people? Bothers me significantly. But also what I want to talk about is what he was saying about revolution. That was revolution. That was revolution. So what he is saying was that there was an unrest going on in the community on the streets, right? And Kennedy got involved and was like, yo, y'all need to get y'all people under control, right? So there was so much going on. And I also want to mention at that particular time in history that America was presenting itself as the moral leader of the free world, right? So how can they say that they are the leader of the world when there's so much conflict going on in the streets with African Americans, right? The global image was tainted, and America was actually embarrassed by what was going on. So we had like all this going on at the same time. So it was like the perfect storm that came together during the March on Washington and how America wanted to present themselves as a world leader. So let's finish listening to what Malcolm X had to say.
I was there when they found out that this black steamroller was going to come down on the Capitol. They called in Wilkins. They called in Randolph. They called in these national Negro leaders that you respect and told them, call it off. Kennedy said, look, y'all letting this thing go too far. And old Tom said, boss, I can't stop it because I didn't start it. They said, I'm not even in it, much less at the head of it. They said, these Negroes are doing things on their own. They're running ahead of us. And that old shrewd fox, he said, well, if you all aren't in it, I'll put you in it. I'll put you at the head of it. I'll endorse it. I'll welcome it. I'll help it. I'll join it.
So that right there is very significant in a lot of ways, right? Because let's ask this question. When the government that you're protesting against helps organize the protest, there's a problem. America, we have a problem, right? So they came in to calm down the revolution, the movement at that time, which Malcolm X is like, yo, what? You're putting cream in the coffee, you're watering down the movement, right? So that is something that we need to look at, right? Because also what Malcolm X was saying in that speech was that we got problems amongst ourselves in our own community that we need to fix amongst ourselves. And we talking about we want a seat at the table, right? We want a seat at the table. We fighting for freedom. We're fighting for the right to vote, which all of those things that came to pass because of the Civil Rights Movement and the Civil Rights Act did allow for liberations in our community. But the question is why did the buck stop there, right? Because in reality, we haven't gained much in our community since the Civil Rights Act was passed. As a matter of fact, more immigrants came into this country at that time, and they were actually afforded more rights, more liberations than the people that fought for it. We have been in this land for 400 years and we still are getting crumbs. So that's why we're about to take a look, and we are about to look at what we gained and what we lost in the Civil Rights Movement. And trust me, this isn't going to be long and crazy. So hold tight, get your glass of wine, get your coffee, get whatever it is that you need. And let's just kind of do an audit. Like, let's say what we gained and what we lost, right? So let's look at it on the surface, revenue, right, of Black Americans. So in 1968, all about half of us had high school diplomas. Today, we sit here in 2026, that number is over 92%. So we have more Black professionals, accountants, and executives managing multi-million-dollar sponsorship budgets than we ever have had in history. So we have gained access. We have gained the right to the table. But as an accountant, baby, I want to tell you that doesn't mean we own a share of the company. So just think about it. We have owned the right to go to school and gain education and do all of these things, but we're still not the owners of the companies if you look at it in a broad spectrum, right? So that is one thing that we can look at. And the liabilities of what we have lost. We have gained the right to buy the product, but we have lost the retained earnings of the right to own our neighborhoods. We've moved from being owners of a segregated economy to being consumers in an integrated one. And consumers don't build generational wealth. So that's the thing. We all know that we spend the money, baby. We spend the money, but we do not own the companies. And so this is one of the things that I really want us to think about. It's like, did we fight so hard for these freedoms and gain, and did it actually harm us in a way? Because at that particular time, it was like Black people own their own businesses and their companies, and we shopped amongst ourselves because we didn't have a choice. But as soon as the Civil Rights Act was passed, Black folks were so happy to go have a Coca-Cola at the table with their counterparts, that became more of the fight. Like, we wanted to be included. We wanted to be at the table with them instead of owning the table amongst ourselves and helping our community thrive. So these are some of the things like we need to think about, right? And I want to kind of like just go through a few things. Bear with me, child. Bear with me. So as far as the wealth gap, this is a loss. And I'm just going to say this. So nationally in 2026, for every dollar of wealth held by the median black household, the median white household holds $10. That's a 10-to-1 ratio, which means we're still 10 steps behind as a community in 2026. So again, I just want to reiterate that the thought is, since the Civil Rights Act, what have we truly gained as a community? We haven't gain much. We're still in the same circumstances financially that we were in the 1960s. Another fact is home ownership is 44%, which is a zero net progress since the 60s. That means that we own the same number of homes that we owned in the 60s as we do today in 2026 in America as an African American community. That is a huge disparity because we haven't moved the buck forward. We have seriously relied on the Civil Rights Act as this great monument, but we've done nothing. I'm not going to say we haven't done nothing to push it forward, because we have. We fought, we have activists, we have people in the street doing their thing. So I don't want to discredit what people have been doing in the community at all. But I think the issue is that when you have 100 or thousands of organizations pushing small agendas forward, we don't have a national pull on what we need and what we deem important in our communities. And that is something that I think that we truly need to focus on. We need to focus on what is it going to take for us to unite as a community so that we can gain what we really desire. I mean, half of the problem is we don't even know what we want. What do we want? Because again, back in those times, the leaders were fighting against each other about different things that they said that they wanted. They could not get on the same page. And I just think that we should take some time to think about what Malcolm X was saying at that time. And let's think about how we need to apply those things to today, right? I also want to do a justice audit. Let's talk about the justice. What have we gained for justice in America? Because first of all, as we all know, we are still getting murdered in the streets. Okay. And just to note that lynching became a federal law when Biden was the president, which was just a few years ago. So that's actually something to really think about. So you think about we think that we're so liberated. So there's so many of us that are celebrities and famous and rich, and we show this image of us as progressive, and we're not. We haven't progressed much since the 1960s, which is something that we really need to study and think about as a community and figure out what it is that we want, what it is that we need, what can we do to unite in order to protect ourselves, love ourselves, figure out what we want. It's so many things. Like, some people feel like, let's get on the board of what Marcus Garvey was saying and go back to Africa. A lot of people are thinking about that now. Khalees, she's over there doing her thing. She bought so many acres of land. She has a farm. She is totally encouraging us to go back to the motherland and reclaim what is ours, right? And then a lot of people are fighting for defund the police and all this and that. But it's like, is that the fight that we want to fight? What fight do we want to fight? What is it? The only thing that we've come together so far and so long is the boycott against Target. And how many of y'all is at Target? Let's just be honest. How many of y'all are back shopping at Target? And what does that really mean at this particular point? Because when you don't shop at Target, you're shopping at Amazon or you're shopping at Walmart. And I understand why we decided not to shop at Target, but the issue is that we don't own our own. And that is the whole thing. After the civil rights movement passed, we began to not shop in our communities. We begin to shop at bigger department stores. And so what happened was our communities now are desolate. Those businesses went out of order because we didn't want to fuck with them. We didn't want to shop with our people. And still to this day, Black people are like, I don't want to shop there. You're going to get this type of product. It's going to be less quality or whatever. But a lot of the Black companies, small businesses, are actually very high quality products. And they are a little bit more expensive because guess why? Because we don't have the infrastructure to be able to buy as much items in bulk in order to bring our costs down as Black businesses trying to start out. So these are things that we need to think about. These are things that we need to talk about as far as like what have we gained and what have we lost since the civil rights movement. So this is just a thought and I want to leave you guys with a few things. I want to leave you with this. This is part of the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King, which we all know that was demonstrated at the March on Washington. And this part of the speech is often lost in history. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of the Republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which Americans will all fall heir. This note was a promise to all men, yes, Black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on its promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. Ask yourself this question. Does this still apply to our community today? That's all I have to say. So trust your Black businesses and support them, people, so we can begin to celebrate each other better. All right. Peace. Have a wonderful day.
I hope you've been listening to me.